Greetings, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Good to connect today, and especially Rob, thank you for making time. It's so nice to have you.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. Good times.
I trust we can pepper you with a few questions. This little get-together we've been doing about one show a week, is intended to help the World Mobile community to look at the markets around crypto, to understand what's happening around WMT, but also just to get more generally a mental model for what we can do as a community, what's happening in potential around crypto, and of course, what to be cautious of. So Rob, you've been doing a show for quite a long time now. Could you unpack a little bit about this show and your motivations for bringing it to market and sustaining it?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Shane. Good to be on here. Pretty good, good timing, great timing, right? Today is one of those days where the entire market just blew up, like just like a couple hundred billion between friends. So these are the days we all live for. I got into it in 2017, and I don't know how long you guys have been in, but I'm going to guess for a while. And when I got in, it was just bedlam and chaos and everything going on around me. And I really didn't have a good grasp of what was happening. But as I've taken myself through this little journey, I realized just how many mistakes I made in the very beginning and the things that I wish I could go back and tell myself to not do and also to do. And since my family and friends were getting quite sick of me talking their ears off about crypto, I'm like, well, I'm sure there's other people who might want to engage in this conversation. Thankfully, there's this thing called YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and everybody else or everywhere else. And that's pretty much how it all pretty much got rolling. I think it was in December 2019. Just just had a little bit of downtime. Thought I'd throw some videos together, and now look at all of us now. Here we are 2 years later.
Look at the mess you've created.
That's the truth.
That's pretty brilliant stuff. I mean, entering in 2017 puts you in the tail end of the ICO insanity. Yeah, so you must have seen a million train wrecks at that moment as all of these, ICOs are popping up for the most ridiculous reasons.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys remember the ICOs? Oh, it was awesome. Everybody was making money. It's only going to go up. It's going to be fantastic forever. Rainbows and unicorns. It's never going to stop. And then, of course, that train came to a screeching halt during crypto winter 2018, February, March, April, and on and on and on. But I got to tell you, I kind of think of it like this. I think if you're in the traditional market, where you see like maybe a 2%, 3% swing, and they're like, man, did you see all the money I made today? I'm like, that's adorable. That's cute. We call that Tuesday morning when we're just getting up before coffee in crypto. I think everybody, if they can start there and they can graduate into cryptocurrency, I think it would be a much better transition than just going straight into crypto. But I remember those days, and it was a good teaching lesson to realize that what goes up will inevitably come down, and you must do your own research, and you must be a level-headed investor and take the emotions out of it, or else you're going to get wrecked.
This is a really good point. And one thing that's been noticeable, I generally do investments around securities, bonds, and so on and so forth. So it's this very steady ship. Of course, it doesn't think it's a steady ship. Bloomberg is always decrying the fall of stocks and then celebrating the rise of stocks as we get minor fluctuations. But if you're in crypto, you need a pretty strong stomach to hold through this very frothy space. It is worrying when you meet people who are brand new to investing and go all in, everything they've got on crypto, especially just a couple of assets. Do you have any tips for people who might be overly exuberant and just thinking, this is great, I'm printing money, I'm going to be a billionaire by Christmas? How do we regulate that and try to prevent them from crushing disappointment due to the market volatility?
First of all, it's just nothing. There is crushing disappointment, but it is such an asymmetrical investment. You really can you really can do quite well. But it was just like when you said that comment, Shane, about anybody can stomach it. I think it was Peter Lynch. He says everybody is intelligent enough to be in the stock market. It's the ones that are successful that actually stomach it for the turbulence. And I think there is no greater place than in cryptocurrency that you actually see that come to actual life. So I will just it's funny, like I just did a show about this yesterday, and it was the lessons learned, and the lessons that if I just wish I could go back and tell myself. One of the things I wish I could go back and tell myself is that, hey, there's going to be massive volatility. And if you want to, keep your sanity, don't keep looking at your portfolio. Just be like a Ronco food dehydrator. Set it and forget it, and then just go away and then come back for months and years later, and you'll be a much, much, much happier person. And then another thing I was also was telling myself in this video was take some profits on the way up. There is those ICO days. I know a lot of people who made a lot of money in those ICO days. And I said, well, how did it all work out when you cashed out? I mean, during the late December 2017 run, I didn't cash out. I just rode it all the way up and all the way down. And I think that is one of the big things. You can teach yourself to have that hardcore cast iron stomach and dollar cost average, value cost average invest. But it's the ones that can be over here and be like, okay, I know I'm gonna need to take profits. And it's like, I forgot when the Rothschild said, the reason why I'm so successful is because I never sell at the top, and I never buy at the very bottom.
This touches on, I guess, two important points. The portfolio watching one is interesting. And if you open Reddit on a bad day, you see people panic selling, and you're like, oh boy, that was the worst possible decision. And of course, then there's the point about having metrics. If the thing goes up, if it's 100x, okay, I divest a certain amount at this juncture, and then I can continue with a certain amount for speculative growth. Would you think it's fair to say that a lot of people don't have a strategy like that in place and tend to get motivated by their gut and their peers at this point in time in crypto?
I believe that can be true. And I can just tell you, when I got in 2017, I wasn't an investor in stock market or anything else. It was mostly into my companies, or also into real estate. So to get into these types of investments, a 401k from businesses, a place I used to work at before. But besides that, it was just like, wow, I can make a ton of money. And, and you can see that all around you. And I think when people they hear the stories, they're in the social medias, they're like, wow, these guys made 1,000%, 10,000%, and they bet on this meme coin or something else. It becomes intoxicating, and there really is that whole FOMO thing, that fear of missing out. And before you know it, they're in way over their head. And I really feel sorry for the ones that actually get in, and then they get suckered into doing leverage trades. But like, what, it's fine for 25x or 50x or God forbid 100x. You're going to make that, don't worry. And before you know it, I have people email me and like, hey, Rob, I just lost a boatload of money, and I knew I wasn't supposed to do it because you told me that on your channel. I got to tell my wife. What's my suggestion? My suggestion is tell your wife immediately, and then beg for forgiveness because she's going to kill you. And then second of all, make sure that you don't do that again, and then figure out how to make yourself right, because that is like the worst thing. So yes, I think it's all around us, and it's really compounded by the fact that, social media is 24/7, and we all see those thumbnails and those posts and everything else. Before you know it, you're like, well, that lady did it, I can do that. And then that guy did it, I can do it. And then off you go.
It's, one noticeable thing on the Binance app is that if you click to Binance Pro on your phone, the first thing you do when you see any coin and you search for it is leverage trades. It's like, oh, 5x. I think I'm not sure that should be the first thing you see when you search for a coin.
It's just one of those things where people like, well, I can get away with that. And I think that you're gonna people can get lucky a couple of times, and before you know it, they can traders. I'm not a trader, first of all. I wish I was a good trader. I'm not. I'm awful at it. That's why I don't do it. I'm trying to learn a little bit, but I'm just awful at it. But I can tell you that you can do 5, 6, 7 great trades. Then you have one horrible leverage trade and it wipes everything out. So
Right.
you guys know that, and I think if you're going to do leverage trading, like a friend of mine, Jason Bazzino, says, he goes, if you're going to do it, just make sure that you know exactly what you're doing and you set your limits and your risk tolerance is high and you have experience. Because if not, he goes, it's going to be a pretty bumpy, awful ride.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, personally, I avoid leverage usually, and I'm a very, 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 very conservative investor, I would say. So, I don't short, I don't leverage, I invest in companies, I buy securities, I buy something like crypto, and I stick with what I like according to metrics.
Sure.
But I'm sure a lot of people feel that's a dry way to approach things and misses a lot of opportunity, and that's for sure. I mean, I was around when Bitcoin came out in 2009, and I remember at that point I was like, I am so not interested in this speculative toy.
Sure. Yeah. Neither was I. I got a, I got a great story before you go on real quick, or I'll forget. The way that I got into Bitcoin, 2012, my son came home. He said, hey, I got a great opportunity. There's this kid at school and he's got a hard drive with 500 Bitcoin and he wants to sell it for $500. And I was like, what's that? Yeah. I go, well, what's Bitcoin? He said, well, it's like this internet money and you can pay for things and it's only $500. I'm like, why wouldn't I just use $500 and just use PayPal? And he's like, well, distributed ledger and blockchain. I'm like, yeah, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. I'm not going to do it. And of course, now here we are. And of course, like every so often he'll text like, told you about that Bitcoin. I'm like, yeah, you were right.
Now, that's a substantial haul these days. Oh, well, we all will have those wonderful moments, and it's useful. It's good over a coffee. That keeps us going when we meet people. So let's swing into World Mobile Token. You probably got full awareness of this token. You've, of course, well, I suppose, unpacked it substantially before you know exactly what it is. I do have a question about it. This utility token is very interconnected with a real world service, right? So it's going to be the fuel of a telco network transactions. Do you think it's an unusual type of token, or does it sink into the market space that we see emerging right now? So how much of a unique diamond is it? How much does it sink into the trends of evolution? Where would you position it in people's heads?
It's pretty interesting in how they did things, and I kind of compared it to, it's like a 2-tier system. At first, I mean, they're really going in there and they're building the exact infrastructure. So places that telecommunications companies cannot go or will not go because it is cost prohibitive, they're able to go in there and then put in the wiring, the air pod or the air mesh, which actually does the actual telecommunications, also give the electricity to these villages, a couple in Tanzania. I think they're branching out all parts of Africa. So to actually go in there and then just have like real world structures, real applications, and actually do things, that is like one of the, not this, it is the most unique part about cryptocurrencies and digital assets. Because right now, if we're going to look at one thing that's obviously exploding, we can take a look at NFTs. So non-fungible tokens and art, and everybody is aghast about it and very, really just amazed about how much money is pouring into the sector. And it's great, but to me, it is another speculative part. It will be huge, it'll be enormous, but when you have World Mobile Token, where they go in there and go, okay, we're going to this one part, we're going to build the infrastructure. Oh, on top of that, then the payment structure for the World Mobile Token, we're going to build it on blockchain, which will be built on the back of the Cardano network. We're going to mesh those two together, and it'll all run kind of seamlessly throughout the areas where telecommunications and connectivity would never be available because it is so cost prohibitive. So when I look at these things and I'm thinking to myself, what is one of the projects that is probably the most unique and can probably do the most good and impact the most people? This is one of those projects.
Yeah, it's certainly been something that caught our eye, hence we are here.
Sure.
So I want to pause here and check if Rick and Bibi have any questions they'd like to throw at you or observations on their end.
Rick, Bibi, hello, how are you?
Good, Rob. I watched a couple of your videos today just to catch up. I liked your the one you were just referencing on what you would have done, what you could have told your future self, the lessons you could have learned, and yeah, taking profits and that strategy, I think is a thing that I'm going to be looking at getting something like that in place. But the question I had was about, Card Wallet has just started taking Cardano native tokens. I just wondered how you thought that might bring new users like Bitcoin and ETH users into the Cardano and World Mobile sort of space.
Yeah, so with Card Wallet, it's a pretty interesting project because you're able to use 3 different blockchains. So you have the Cardano chain, looks like you're having Bitcoin and also Ethereum. And it looks like what they're trying to do is have essentially DeFi in your pocket. And also they're going to be able to offer these World Mobile Token, which is a native token of Cardano, to be able to actually one of the few wallets to be actually placed in there, and then 100 other different types of cryptocurrencies. Now, the thing that is great right now is if you are an Android user, you can use all the different awesome aspects of Card Wallet and what it actually does. But if you are a Apple iPhone user, like myself, you can't use everything because they're going through that whole rigmarole and system of how Apple doesn't like to share revenue and things like that. So when I look at projects that you don't really see it too much, as far as being able to do these things, and also they have on and off ramps for fiat. So for me, I was like, that's pretty darn interesting because for me in America, I don't know where everybody else is at. I mean, it's all regulated. It's all KYC and AML, and it has to go through exchanges, and there has to be a rigorous testing. And even certain states in the United States can't get into all the different exchanges that are offered, throughout. So, like in New York, they have problems with getting in, and then California, and then even my great state of Texas has different issues around different wallets. So, this one I'm hoping will be a pretty great thing as it fleshes out.
Yeah, cool. Bibi, you got anything?
I have a question that's more generic, not World Mobile specific. It's something that might interest the beginners and maybe confuse even the experienced investors. So it's about regulations. I think recently there's been a lot of, for me, conflicting sound bites in terms of crypto regulations. In the US, for example, just a while back, they were pretty hot on environmental issues pertaining to Bitcoin. And more recently, SEC sounded more than ready for a crackdown. And then just 1 or 2 days ago, we hear a categorical statement from Jay Powell of the Fed saying that, no, we won't ban crypto. So for the beginner, that might sound a little bit confusing. Even the China news, the sound bites coming from that is either, oh, it's nothing, we can still have access, the Chinese can still have access, the miners aren't there anymore. And then on the other hand, you see panic selling and this very wild negative reaction. So what's your take on that? And what would you advise, especially the beginners, when they hear these sorts of things?
Oh, that's a great question. So first of all, let's unpack, let's go back to the very basics in the very beginning of who bans what first. And it always starts with China. So I will tell you this, there's this great meme and it's a person screaming in like 9 different boxes. And it starts in like 2012 or 13. And it says, China bans Bitcoin. 2014, China bans Bitcoin, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20. Every single year, and it seems like every time when the market starts to do this, where it goes up, China's always like, you know what, or starts to say, we're going to ban this part. We're going to ban this part. We're going to kick out all the miners. We're going to ban the holding of cryptocurrency, or not the holding, excuse me, trading of cryptocurrencies. We're going to really just crack down everybody. And every single time, then it starts to cause what we call FUD. If you're new to the area, it's called fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that is the king of all FUD. So there's that. There's China. Then let's fast forward a little bit to India. So with India, the central banks brought forward and said, hey, we are going to ban cryptocurrencies. And for a while in India, there was a ban on cryptocurrencies. Then it went to the Supreme Court of India. They said, you know what, that is unconstitutional for us. And then we're going to reverse it. And then, of course, the central banks are still on there going, you know what, we're going to try to do this, this, and this. However, it's still being applied, because I think that if you just take a look at China and take a look at India first, usually the people will usually win out and say, we're going to do this. Except in China, I think the CCP has a little bit too much power. Now let's go forward to America. So in America, everything was very smooth, and it could be a lot smoother if there was just a little light touch of regulation and they just do a hands-off thing like they did in the beginning of the internet in the 1990s, where they said, hey, we're going to regulate just a little bit. We're not going to have anybody who runs a website to be totally in control of everything that is said and heard and everything else. We're not going to prosecute you, and allows the internet to flourish. Just that little bit of regulation and clarity. However, since we don't get that here now, we have this problem. And right now we're going through this process, and we've got Gary Gensler at the SEC, and he's saying, hey, everything is a security. And he might be, and I'm going to preface this, is I'll get to why I think he's wrong, but in one sense, he is right, because the way that he looks at things, just like on a legal aspect, he takes a look at the Howey test, which is written in the 1930s, which we're applying to blockchain technology in 2000s, which makes no relevant sense. He's like, what's over here makes sense, and we need to say this is security. So in that sense, it is. If there are new laws that came about, maybe it'll be different, but I think he's going to make a hard line, and he made that very clear in the House, the Senate House Banking Committee that just came about. So what's going to happen? There's going to be a lot of back and forth. Even though one section says it, the SEC, you also have to remember there is the CFTC, as far as like commodities, and there's also the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. So right now there is a huge battle going on, and it's not like it's going to be settled anytime soon. I think what really should happen is, when I was in the Army, I was a medic. We had this thing called triage. When somebody was pretty bad, we'd send them into the medvac and say, how bad is this person? This way, this way. It's the same thing with cryptocurrency. Let's bring it in and have them evaluate it. Is this a security? We'll do this new test that we figured out. Because it can't be the Howey test. Is it a commodity? Well, it's going to be regulated by the CFTC. Is it a currency? We're going to go for the OCC. So right now, as this moves back and forth, just expect a lot of volatility until we get just a little bit of clarity, like we did in the 1990s with the internet. And once that happens, just like Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, he says, once we get a little bit of clarity and we get an ETF actually approved, you're going to see at least $1 trillion on the sidelines of individual investors who are more comfortable with ETFs get into the cryptocurrency game. So that's a very long answer, but don't worry. I think the best things are on the horizon if you're new.
Great answer. Thanks, Rob. I like the historical reference to the internet in the 1990s.
Yeah. Well, I'm old, so I remember all that stuff. Yeah.
Can I ask another one? This one's a little bit more positive.
Sure.
You touched on it a little bit, and my question is about emerging trends in crypto and what emerging trends you see, not necessarily next year, but just in general, because we had ICOs like what was mentioned in 2017, and then there was DeFi boom, with NFTs being sort of a subcategory of that. Do you think there's any particular area that might attract as much interest? I'm thinking RealFi, but I'm biased, so maybe there's something else that you see.
No, I think, look, this is a tough question. I can tell you what's in the near future. And I think what the near future is even though we're all enthralled with these NFTs and the art part about it, I think the real power lies in being able to actually have some type of asset being portrayed as an NFT and actually having ownership of it. So like NFTs, I see as far as like intellectual property. I see what's great as far as like beads and being able to put things as far as like real estate and things in the NFTs. And I think that's more of a bigger play than just the art part of NFTs and how it works. So that's just the one part. And I think if we take a look at World Mobile Token and how they're actually building like infrastructure and, you know, putting on and then piggybacking on with blockchain. I think that's a new big thing. But I think one of the bigger things is the rubber has to meet the road. All these time back in 2017, it was just white papers and dreams. And now it actually has to have a real purpose and a use case. Even Bitcoin surprised me this year because I thought for sure it would never be a cryptocurrency again. But Lightning proved me wrong in El Salvador, and they're actually able to make it work in this layer 2 solution. So there's that first part in the near term, 6 months to a year or so. Past that, I think that there are things that we haven't even thought of that are going to happen that we can't even fathom. Remember back, and again, another reference historically as far as like the internet. Remember back in the day when if somebody in the 1990s came to you and said, hey, I need to hire an SEO expert who's also great at return on ad spend for AdWords and also going to do Facebook ads. You're like, what did you just say to me? That makes no sense. Is that really a job? It can't be a job. That's a real job. That's a real job. That's a great job right now. It makes a lot of money. So like back then, you never would have known it. And we thought in the internet, it was going to wipe away a bunch of jobs. Well, it did, but it also gave rise to other jobs here. So like I said, in a year, 3 years, 5 years, it's not going to look like what we know it is now.
So I guess we should, oh, go ahead, Bibi.
No, nothing.
I guess we should trundle towards the end point here because we don't want to keep you all day. Though, I mean, we've already squeezed some really interesting material out of you. But yes, I do have something which may be both fun and enlightening. Do you have examples of a time when you found something absolutely great, you saw it growing and rising, and you were just entirely lucky as the stars aligned? And have you done the opposite and found a train wreck of epic proportions? So, what's your biggest win in terms of topic? What's your biggest absolute disaster?
So if we're talking about cryptocurrency or life in general.
Oh yeah.
So
let's go for crypto. We don't want to have too many examples.
Oh yeah, but that's a big example. So in cryptocurrency, I'm gonna combine it into something right now that I did this. Everybody likes price predictions videos. They love them, but they are worthless because, in all honesty, we're just making like random guesses. I mean, we can do a lot of data. We can take the numbers and do fractals and do TA, SA, and FA, but in reality, nobody knows where things are going, and we're not Nostradamus. So I did a video on January 7th, 2021. I said, this is where I think the prices are going. And I actually underscored a ton of different ones. Like Chainlink, I think it hit my prediction by like June. Like I was like April, when everything went up. And then also Theta totally went past everything. Ethereum didn't hit it, and I think there was one more. But there was one that I called out, and it was Voyager, VGX token. And Voyager, if you're in the United States, it's a brokerage. It's kind of like the hotels.com of crypto. Instead of going to like DoubleTree or Motel 6, you go to motels or hotel.com and say, I want to stay in this hotel. Okay, well, here's all the different options. Here's the best price. There you go. So that's what Voyager essentially does. Goes through all the exchanges. Here's the best price. There's your Bitcoin. And when it was 29 cents and it had a market cap and just in a couple of billion, and then the max supply was like 222 million. I go, this is a pretty undervalued project. It's 29 cents. I go, I don't see how this is not going to happen. And they had just a huge, massive influx of people after the whole Robinhood fiasco, and they got shut down, or they shut people down. And it went from 29 cents to up to $7 in like 2 weeks or something crazy like that. I just got lucky. Really, what happened? Because I go, this has got a great utility. I always just like you guys probably do the same thing. Shane, you touch on it. I am a reserved investor. I don't make crazy predictions. I bet on people, I bet on teams, and I bet on utility. And I try to just take a look at where things are going. With Voyager, I thought this one is going to be, it's just going to keep going and going and going because it has massive utility. And this was without the loyalty program where you get, you can stake Voyager for 7%. It increases your yield by up to 1.5% on top of whatever. And I was like, it's going to go $30. It's going to go $30. And when I went to 7, I'm like, I'm on my way. And what is it now today? It's like $2.22 or $2.30. So we're still not at the very end, but so far that prediction has been my crash and burn so much. But it's a funny thing though. It's like you see it, you see the utility, you take a look at Metcalfe's law and just say, well, the base is growing and the users, so I can see where it's going. But so far, it's been my least performing cryptocurrency, and I get heat for it, I think, every single day, but I still believe in it and I still like the people and where things are going.
That's a really, really interesting point. I think it was about summer 2016. I was traveling with a Silicon Valley lawyer in Kyoto, going to pottery places. And we were spending the day together in the back of a car as we were shuttled around. And this was at the point of, I think the massive emergence of companies realizing, oh, we can, as you said, write a white paper and create magical sparkles out of the air. And we were talking it through because, of course, he was dealing with a lot of companies doing that. And it was interesting that at that moment in the market, performance was not indicative of fundamentals by any measure. Right. When it came to people issuing, it was a complete crapshoot. And I think it's worth bearing in mind, and your tale illustrates it, that mostly fundamentals are a great guide. If there's a foundation, there's a foundation. But then there's always the unpredictable aspect of the market, where something that should perform great doesn't. And that's just part of the game. It's just something we take on the chin, and we're like, oh, well.
Oh, well.
I would suggest investors don't get disencouraged when it happens, right? Even if you do really good research, you really know something's going to work out and it doesn't. That's part of the life of investment.
Yeah, and what's great about crypto, it's like the weather in Houston. If you don't like the weather right now, just wait. It'll change in a couple hours and you'll be just fine. So same thing, prices in crypto. I mean, look at today.
All
Geez,
right.
please.
I know. I never thought that Bitcoin, which is a completely imaginary zero fundamentals item, would have such growth. And it's collapsed, I think, 5 times now and come back. So it's the ultimate zombie. It's a remarkable thing.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time. Oh, apologies. I was going to say thank you so much for your time today. You have been fantastic in answering our questions. You've been so generous to give us a moment here. We're going to share this video with the community. We have a lot of people onboarding into WMT, and there's so much enthusiasm, so much excitement. People are looking for lighthouses to see what others are doing, to see what lessons were learned. And for that reason, it's just been really valuable. And I thank you deeply, Rob. And of course, everyone, you should go and subscribe to Digital Asset News right away, and then start bothering Rob in the comments.
My favorite.
Rob is so great, so generous to come on the show and to lend us his thoughts. I think he's got an exceptional way of describing things. It's so easy to understand. It's insightful, it's helpful, and it's measured and balanced.
Yeah, definitely.
By the way, Rick, I love the t-shirt. Actually, how I got started in open source was FreeDOS, an open source version of DOS. I was helping with the project on the graphical user interfaces. But this all reveals our age. Yes, most of our audience is like, what? What's on his t-shirt? Don't worry, kids. We're not going to talk about VHS and floppy disks.
Oh, yeah, man.
So we have some really interesting stuff following up from our last episode. The Cardano Summit seemed to bring out, I think, a couple of items that are really cool. One is the Philippine Bank that collaborated with some parties and has launched its own stake pool. So this is a Cardano Foundation engagement. This is I think maybe the first stake pool from a bank. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
Let me briefly describe the crypto landscape in the Philippines since I'm from there. So government attitude towards crypto in the Philippines is generally positive, although in the past they have issued guidance around requiring KYC and ensuring AML efforts are maintained. Financial inclusion is something that has always been a top priority for the central bank because a staggering 70% of adult Filipinos don't have bank accounts. I think if you include non-adults, that's something like 95%. So yeah, it's shockingly high, even to me. So what that means is that the regulators and the government itself, they welcome any technology that will extend the reach of financial services. And in fact, the central bank have explicitly acknowledged that the use of cryptocurrencies is an extremely viable solution. So there's a generally positive stance towards cryptocurrencies. Now, on top of that, the Filipinos in general also have a very open attitude to change. The population is relatively young, not as young as Africa, several countries in Africa, but the median age is 24 years. So that means about 40 years of very high productivity until retirement. Filipinos are all over the internet and also we have a significant diaspora of Filipinos, about 12 million all over the world. And because Filipinos, they come from somewhere where basic needs and services are not met, they're more willing to try new alternatives. And if it works, it's really going to stick. One example, which is a favorite of mine, are ride-hailing apps like Uber or GrabCar. I don't know if you've heard of GrabCar. It's more of an Asian company, I think. So they came to the Philippines a few years back. And then, like in many other countries, the government banned them completely, simply because they're ambiguous creatures and they're hard to regulate and they're disrupting the existing franchise system, etc., etc. But because the provision of the transport service is somewhat decentralized, right? You just book in an app and then it's many different private drivers. It had this kind of pervasive nature into the lives of the regular Filipino, which in the end had a positive effect to all those involved. So for passengers, they now have a much better transportation option, and the drivers and the riders made good living participate in that system. So in the end, despite the hostile attitude, after several legal protests, as well as protests on the streets, democracy eventually prevailed. And now the Philippines has so many ride-hailing apps. They have for passenger transport, for delivery, not just for food, but anything that you can think of, motorcycle transport. And I'm sure anyone who is living where these services are available can't imagine a life without them anymore, especially not after the pandemic. So I think cryptocurrencies, relating to that, cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology will have the same kind of pervasive effect in the lives of the regular Filipinos, because there's this very conducive and open environment for that change to happen. Now, going to UBX and Union Bank specifically, Union Bank is one of the top 10 biggest banks in the Philippines by asset size. They've pivoted to fintech and digital banking long before their competitors. So that was a pretty major business move for them. For example, they've had their own blockchain unit for about 4 years now. They've tokenized bonds. They've launched a peso stable coin, and they're using it in their own network because they have a local network of rural lenders. And to give them more access, they use that stable coin. Now, a lot of those activities by the banking entity was eventually carved out into a new entity called UBX. So that's their fintech venture entity. So those are the two names that you would see in the Cardano announcement. So this partnership, for me, is another big affirmation for crypto and for crypto in general and for Cardano in particular, and its ability to integrate and innovate with existing systems and traditional institutions. Partnerships with banks and financial institutions, that's not entirely new in crypto. And Union Bank is also not the biggest bank in the world. It's not even, it's like top 9 in the Philippines. But if you look at what they're actually doing with this partnership, they're operating a stake pool. This means they're actively participating in securing and maintaining the network, right? So obviously there are business and financial motivations behind that. They're trying to capture a certain business, right? But if you compare that to the usual bank partnerships that's been announced in the past and the usual involvement of financial institutions, what most of them have done so far is all about capturing the money flow, about the fiat money flow. They know people are into crypto. That's where funds are flowing, and they want a piece of that action. It's a flow play. So they offer brokerage services, buying and selling of crypto, fiduciary services like managing wallets and storage services, or even funds and ETFs. But that's quite different from being a stake pool operator, which is agnostic with respect to the fiat currency that you use to buy it. So for all these reasons, I know this is not, this is probably a bit of Cardano Summit, which people probably don't consider as something major. But for me, I think this development is extremely interesting because of the nature of it. So I'll be observing how the UBX and Union Bank eventually contributes to scaling the use of Cardano and increasing awareness and adoption, and how they leverage possibly their existing customer base and their banking entity in order to grow their stake pool. I'll also be looking at their other fintech projects, because remember, this is a fintech venture, so they have a lot of different things going on, and if they'll continue to use Cardano for the blockchain related ones, or if they will start partnering with some other blockchain. One interesting bit, when I visited their website, I spotted a project called either Akin or Akin. I don't know if they meant that to be a Tagalog word or an English word, because in Tagalog, Akin means mine. So it makes more sense in Tagalog. And Akin is a digital identity platform. So I thought this might be based on Atala Prism. Unfortunately, there's no information on their website. But if it will be based on Atala Prism, I think Filipinos might belong to that first lucky set of people who'll be able to use the Cardano digital identity platform in the real world. So I hope it's Cardano. We'll see what happens.
Well, that was awesome, Bibi. You've really done your research on that. I didn't have a lot to say.
Yeah, because I was really, really curious. And a lot of people were asking about it, actually. Just today, someone was asking me, do you know if it's already possible for a business account, meaning a bank account, to stake directly to ADA through this bank? I'm like, where did you hear that? They're already thinking steps ahead. So maybe that's one capability that they'd be able to offer in the future, fiat, another on-ramp from fiat to crypto.
Yeah, might be. I had some crazy thoughts. Sorry.
Oh, good. Go for it. Crazy is the best.
Yeah, crazy is the best. I had a crazy thought about, we've been talking a bit about Hydra in some of our other conversations in the chat. Hydra being a sort of a layer 2 solution, it won't be on the blockchain. It will be run, above the blockchain. And well, kind of, where is that? Isn't that the stake pools that run that sort of stuff? So, you know, I'm kind of, this is crazy and like look far into the future, but there will be components, you know, different computational languages, and that you can, you know, there's going to be a like Ethereum virtual machine as well as the Yalla stuff. So these will all be run in the nodes in the stake pool. So it just, you know, it's in the future, but I'm just imagining that there might be some functionality that, you know, as a stake pool operator, you could be doing something processing that was purely related to almost your business. So there would be almost no point in any of the other nodes processing it. But yeah, like I say, crazy.
No, it's a really good point, Rick. I mean, I pick up two items from Bibi's analysis. The first is 70% unbanked is a huge number. And that's fine. I mean, the economy's adjusted to it, but it does mean that in some ways the Philippines are best positioned for something like crypto, because it's, instead of, you know, legacy institutions, the majority of your market's ready to go straight to the future. And that's a really exciting opportunity. And, you know, to your point, Rick, if a bank is dipping into the space, if a bank is building out digital ID, what they can provide on top of the blockchain, what they can build with level 2 is, if not unlimited, then pretty broad. Back to Bibi's point, then we have no idea where this will go. It could go in very interesting directions. I think their stake pool is a little expensive on the fees, though, if I remember correctly.
Yes. And actually, some people are saying, don't you think they're structured a little bit like Binance? Because guess what the pledge is? It's 0. So to me, this is more of a scaling and adoption. That's the positive bit here, not so much as hey, we have a new great stake pool, because there are many other existing ones that do already well in terms of the technical performance and also in terms of rewards.
Yeah, now on Reddit and so on, people are very passionate about pool fees, and they get very excited in a positive or negative way, which is fine. Though I would, you know, note that in Cardano, mathematically, pools all provide the same returns over time, with the exception that small pools, they can put their margin down to 0%, but the fixed 340 ADA fee will destroy delegate returns if your pool is under a certain size and scale. By the same token, when it comes to a pool with a certain mass, which isn't that big, there and beyond, 1% or 2% is not particularly noticeable on the rewards. So I think people get very passionate about the margins that the pools charge, but you know, this pool I think is 5%, so it's quite high, but it's not unprecedented. Charles has a pool with another person called RATS, R-A-T-S, and their margin's 10%. I think they did it on purpose. You know, Charles has been pretty clear in the past that races to the bottom are not what he's interested in, right? Sustainable economics. Let's see where they go. I hope that later in this year or next year, maybe we can catch someone from UBX and learn more directly about their vision. They don't have to commit to, oh, this is definitely what we're doing, but it would be great to just unpack what they feel is good. Related to banking and banky stuff, by the way, is a technical term.
Yeah, good.
Sounds very professional.
My level of banking.
What I'd love to do is to look at Oasis Pro briefly, and we don't have to look at the metrics per se, but I just want to give some context to our viewers. This was also at the Cardano Summit. Oasis Pro can provide certain types of fiscal innovation on blockchain. And what they want to do is provide access to primary bond markets, which sounds like one of the most boring things in the world, and generally it is. But that's why people like bonds. It's a very stable-ish way of buying debt, and then someone pays you back that debt with a small amount of interest. Now, if you buy a bond from a really unstable company, the chance is they'll get wiped out. But if you buy a bond from a major corporation, let's just pick, randomly a company like IBM or a company like Siemens, you're probably going to get your returns. Now, the thing with bonds is that when companies sell the debt or countries sell the debt, you normally can't buy directly. Institutions do. A bank will buy the bonds, and they'll sell them on later. So the first set, the primary bond market, is when the government or the company issues the debt, and generally that's big institutions that can buy the debt, and off they go. And individuals or small groups can buy on the secondary market when the institutions sell onwards. But that does mean you're missing out on an opportunity. I mean, there's no reason not to be excited to think, oh, I'll buy some Google debt. And that's what Oasis Pro is offering. Access to the primary bond market without having to wait around for secondary. It's a really interesting concept. I mean, on pro trading platforms, you get access to secondary bond markets. You don't easily get access to primary unless you're spending a lot of money. So this concept from Oasis Pro sounds very exciting to me, and it sounds like traditional finance meets some fiscal innovation. I just wanted to get your take on it. Is it something that interested you, or were you like, okay, I can see why bond people might be interested in this, but personally, meh.
As a non-banky person, I can give a short answer and then let Bibi give a long answer in a minute. When I've got some gains that once I've taken some nice profits along the way, and I want somewhere to park it, Rob was saying on his video that he mentioned about taking profits. He was saying one of his strategies is to put it into stable coins rather than putting it into cash. But so this kind of idea of buying bond from a country or a company, that would seem like a good way of putting it in a safe place, but you're not going to put it into cash, which will depreciate. You're going to, buying a slowly appreciating asset that hopefully will at least match up with the inflation, and the decreasing purchasing power due to the printing dollars and pounds and all that. That's my short answer.
Really good point, Rick. Bibi, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, but it sounds very interesting from a process point of view. So what they're doing is they're replacing what you call in traditional banking as book running, from how I understand it. So book running is when a bank or an institution underwrites or basically buys the bonds from the issuer, and they're in charge of building the books, meaning filling the orders and getting or releasing all those bonds into the retail market. And you're right, Shane, usually the people who have access to that have a very high buy-in amount. The ticket sizes are very high. It's not for the regular person. Not to mention, of course, you have to have the bank account to even gain information on that. So yeah, access is very good. Obviously, the automation is a big deal as well. People probably don't realize it, but book running is still a highly manual process. All the calling, and of course you have to sell to the person. If you have a system like this, then those who are naturally interested will just come to you. And that, of course, when you don't need the effort to sell, that means lower costs, lower marketing, and lower fees as well for the entity that's issuing the bond. So yeah, that's very interesting. I think it's a very good innovation.
I guess for my camera. I guess for our viewers, we should probably. My camera's been really misbehaving. I guess for our viewers, we should probably clarify that, on the primary markets, we are not talking buying a small piece. We're talking many millions of dollars to get started. And innovating around that will be really useful.
There's no earthquake in Japan, is there?
No, just a bad tripod. But let me go back into that and just tell people where I was going, that, you know, if you want to see the sums involved, you should watch The Big Short, because that's where you begin to get an idea of the type of money on the table. So two of the traders in that movie want to have a leveraged trade against what they think will be a failing market. And they're putting in, if I recall correctly, $35 million to get started. And that's the access money. That's just what you can go minimum on. So when we talk access to primary bond markets, it is not what you do on Robinhood, but providing a fiscal innovation that takes you in there is a really cool idea. Okay, so there is one concern about primary bonds. Let me be clear that I think there's one thing that is worrying. Bonds are one of the lowest yield ways you can invest, apart from committing fiscal suicide with a deposit account with 0%, in which case you're losing about 2% a year with inflation. So crypto is used to 100x. Bond markets are used to 1.2, 1.7. Maybe on long bonds, you're getting 3.5. Do you think that culturally speaking, now I like the product, I'm going to use it probably from Oasis Pro, but culturally speaking, it's very disparate. Do you think that might cause some tensions where the crypto people are like, bonds, let's try. And then they're like, it'll take 45,000 years to make the return I would have made yesterday on Shiba Inu.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very valid point, Matt. Definitely, Shane. Oh, I'm muted. Oh, no, no. Am I here?
No, you're not. You're
No,
not.
you're not.
Yeah, it's a very valid point.
Through.
But maybe, maturity will happen in the crypto space eventually. It's like, as things like the World Mobile Token comes about and real world use starts to happen, like there will be some actual fundamental value behind the tokens in the world. And so these bonds, these tokenized bonds are another example of like a real thing on the blockchain. And the more of those things that come, there's always speculation in the markets, but with more real things, it might become a bit more level, and some things will probably still be flighty, but it's just going to be an educational process with time. The inflows from the regular investing world into the crypto world, and it'll just change slowly with time, I think.
I can see this doing a kind of a circular situation where suddenly a crypto service provision is of interest to broker platforms, and they start to include it back so that on Robinhood you can click to buy a unit bond at a relatively cheap price on the primary market. Let's see how that goes. And I'd like to make a point for the audience about portfolio balancing. Okay, so when you're in traditional investment, you have percentages of portfolio allocation to different types of investment vehicle for the purpose of safety. And let's say you're in your 30s, a common mix is 70% securities, 30% bonds. For instance, long-term and intermediate bonds from treasuries and corporations. You often these days buy government debt through an ETF. You buy corporate bonds from, let's say, the FT 500 wrapped up in an ETF. And as you get older, traditionally you put more money into bonds than you have in securities. So you enter into your 40s, you begin to consider, is now the moment? Maybe I'll go to my 50s. I still have a risk profile. You're in your 50s, 40% bonds, 60% securities. You're in your 60s, you're getting close to dying. So you want security. You don't want the market to bottom out and take 15 years. So now you're going 50% bonds, 50% securities. So that's how things have traditionally worked. But I would point out that in the last decade and a bit, because of extremely loose fiscal policy, it makes more sense to have more in securities, right? Because companies are able to borrow debt almost endlessly to bring new products to market and so down, and they keep juicing the stocks. But these things turn. It's not permanent. The market will fall and people will be horrified and they'll run to bonds again. But anyway, viewers, that's why we were talking about this, because you may want bonds, you may want relatively modest tokens as well as moonshot tokens. And that diversification will be a good thing. And it's nice to have the option.
Yeah. All
right, the final item on my radar is Light Wallet. So for a lot of people, they download Daedalus and take probably a day or two for it to get working, because it has to download the whole blockchain. And this new Light Wallet was announced. Do you think it's an interesting thing, or do you think that our existing Light Wallet that's in the market, Yoroi, is already suitable? Is this exciting news for you?
This was very exciting for me because they have several tabs. So there was one for NFTs where you see a physical or the visual representation of the NFTs. Daedalus only has a list. Now I'm not aware of a wallet that displays it directly yet. And then there's an identity tab. I think maybe you can track where you get your certificates or maybe where you've used it. So there's that tab. And then there's a DApp tab, which is a DApp store, and that's where you go when you want to install a DApp. And you can also vote directly from the wallet. So no more Catalyst app on your phone. And also it's multi-currency. That's the last thing that I saw. The bit that got me wondering a bit is, I think it's a it's a browser wallet. It's a browser extension, not a browser application. I'm not sure why they made that choice. Maybe Shane, you can, especially with regards to security, I don't know why they picked a browser extension, because I almost never use browser extension wallets, only because it doesn't feel safe for me. I feel like the browser itself is an attack vector, for hackers. But I'm not the expert, so maybe you guys, Rick and Shane, maybe you guys can shed some more light on that.
Unfortunately, whilst they were doing the Mithril presentation at the Cardano Summit, I was like chatting to people in the networking area and telling everybody about the goodness of World Mobile. So I missed the most recent update on Mithril. But I've watched quite a lot of videos about it in previous months, and the main thing which will be different between this and any previous light wallets is it's going to use a different method of securing, of security. So with regards to it being as a Chrome or a browser extension, I'm guessing that they're very confident with the security protocols that they're building into it, and perhaps that's why. If you just put it in the browser, of course you can use it on any device, can't you? So you don't need to, when I've been building some apps recently, I've started to just trying to do things in JavaScript and React and so on, because I can just, I can run on an Android or an iPhone or on a computer. As long as you get the displays to work, you don't need to keep reinventing the wheel for different machines. So there's a variety of reasons, but yeah, I think the security will be good. I think that's the whole thing. It's a new level of security. So yeah, I want to watch the Summit presentation because I've not seen all those cool graphics and tabs that you're describing there.
I think, if it was 10 years ago, I'd say this is going to be a train wreck. But there's been some interesting advances in browsers, particularly the Chromium code base for Chrome and Brave and a few others, and also Safari, and recently Microsoft's new browser. So they've done a few things for thread protection and memory protection that are quite useful. And the best way I'd describe it is that when you open a new tab, it's given its own little space to execute in. And this virtualized space is not completely, but pretty well containerized. And for extensions, it's relatively similar. The extensions can do certain stuff with your browser, but they've got hard limits. So in the past, an extension used to really fit into the browser, and it could do pretty much what the browser could do. But now extensions can call some APIs, they get permission to do some stuff, but it's extremely limited. Is it a zero risk game? Of course not. In security, nothing is. And quite frankly, people can have compromised computers. They can compromise their computer, and that could compromise their browser, or it could just more generally open everything up. Will it happen due to a wallet being in an extension? No. Will it happen due to someone being able to easily access your wallet from you going to their webpage? No. Will it happen because you opened an email link or downloaded a stupid thing? Yes. That's the attack vector, but that is going to apply to every wallet out there. So I think we're probably looking at equivalent security to a desktop wallet, though I think it's going to be a while before people around the world would feel the same if they're of a certain age, because if you started using computers 10 years ago, one of the first warnings was be careful of the extensions. And that's true until very, very recently. But now it's changing. And I think that Charles and his team in particular are very savvy of where we're at. And I think probably the reason they went with this wallet in this form is because the foundational layers behind browsers and extensions probably in the last year or two, maybe 3 years, have hit that level of maturity. Sorry for delving into that, but I do think it's a really good question. Yeah, and ironically somewhat, the most secure place to keep a browser is probably on something like an iPhone, because that is so deeply locked down. There's very little attack vector. And like I said, your main attack vector is you. You do something really stupid and your computer's compromised. Apple engineers around this by essentially putting huge fortresses with spiky spears and not allowing anyone to do a lot of stuff. Okay, so we've had a big show today. We've had a lot of excitement. Rob was incredible. My broken camera stand, moving my camera, outstanding. And your contributions at late night, right? It's like 11 o'clock or something for you guys.
Oh, it's only 10:30.
Almost midnight here.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And please have a lovely weekend. I will edit together, and fingers crossed we catch Zach on a Sunday, who of course many of you will know as one of our serious ambassadors. That's right. And we're going to find out all his secrets. As a preview to that segment of this show, we're going to ask Zach about water heaters. You'll find out why later.
Okay.
Whistling.
All right. That was so left field. Maybe like.
Yeah, now I'm intrigued.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you. It's lovely to see you guys again. Take care.